Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
In a democracy, those holding powers and positions of responsibility must be answerable for their action. The democratic state has a social contract with the citizens and functions on behalf of the people. To ensure that this contract is respected, a democracy provides for several institutional mechanisms like the judiciary, vigilance bodies, and an independent supreme audit institution. The Controller and Auditor General of India, functioning under him, constitute the Supreme Audit Institution of India. Senior functionaries of the Supreme Audit Institution representing the CAG in the states are called Accountants General. The origin of auditing is as ancient as the origin of organized governance. The Arthashastra provides detailed guidance on the manner of accounting and the verification of accounts. During the medieval period, the Mushraf and the Mustafi performed the accounting and auditing functions respectively. The role of the CAG evolved through practice and tradition in British India. The term Controller and Auditor General of India was first used in 1884. Under the Montfort reforms of 1919, the Auditor General became independent of the government. The Government of India Act 1935 strengthened the position of the Auditor General. In the Indian system of governance, the policies set by the Parliament and state legislatures give the goals to be achieved through public spending. These policies are translated into programs and implemented by various departments of the government. For this, the Parliament sanctions the budget which prescribes how government will collect money through taxes and how much, and for which purposes it shall be spent. There are also financial rules which the government departments and other public bodies must follow when they receive and spend public money. The spending departments are accountable to the Parliament for both the quantity and quality of their expenditure. Foreseeing the problems inherent in having an auditor who is subordinate or open to pressure by the government in power, the framers of our constitution put in place several provisions in Article 148 to 151 to ensure that the CAG and the officers of the SAI of India are able to conduct their work in an impartial and upright manner.
Constitution of India provides a very important role to the Controller and Auditor General of India. As a matter of fact, it is in some ways even the continuation of what was provided under the 1935 Act and even much earlier. The basic reason is that the resources, how they are mobilized, how they are spent, and if there is any leakage, the executive authorities, what action they had taken to prevent that. These are very important things from the viewpoint of a democratic control.
The duties and powers of the CAG were codified by a 1971 Act of Parliament. It conducts three types of audits of public spending. Financial audit, to establish if acceptable accounting standards for financial reporting and disclosures have been complied with. Compliance audit, to find out if laid down procedures have been followed. Performance audit, to evaluate if programs and projects have achieved desired objectives and provided intended benefits. Performance audit does not correspond to the traditional image of auditing as a process centered on checking the books to attest their correctness. It seeks to establish at what cost and to what degree the policies, programs and projects are working. Performance audit, apart from asking whether things are being done in the right way, goes a step further and analyzes whether the right things are being done. In addition to all the financial audit checks, the performance audit seeks to assess whether a program, scheme or activity deploys sound means to achieve its intended socio-economic objectives.
The Controller and Auditor General every year tries to see that which reports, which particular ministries and which particular wings or departments of various ministries, both in the center and the states, he should have examined, audited, because can't every year cover everything. So there is somehow or other a system worked out, so that say in the period of 3 years and a period of 4 years or 5 years, all the departments and most of these are covered, and particularly which are very important from the viewpoint of the public interest, public good, public welfare.
The CAG aimed to cover almost every spending unit of the government at least once in 3 years. However, CAG focuses more rigorously on areas which are risk-prone. These are generally audited annually. Many organizations are subject to the audit of the CAG. This includes all the union and state government departments, including the Indian Railways, Defence and Posts, and Telecommunications. About 1,500 public commercial enterprises controlled by the union and state governments, that is government companies and corporations, come under the scanner. Around 400 non-commercial autonomous bodies and authorities owned or controlled by the union or the states. Bodies and authorities substantially financed from union or state finances are also scanned by the auditors. Notable among these are some of the local bodies and Panchayati Raj institutions, which are critical grassroots agencies for implementation of developmental programs and delivery of services. The reports of the CAG on central PSUs have found substantial discrepancy in accounts of many PSUs. The CAG found that BSNL had overstated its profits for 2 years by Rs 1,000 crore and Rs 587 crore respectively. The CAG review of government's flagship healthcare scheme, NRHM, revealed a sluggish fund flow mechanism, especially in the states which have poor health indicators. This has a cascading effect on development of infrastructure at primary and community health center levels. The procurement and supply system of medicines in many states was plagued with delays, poor stock management, and poor quality control. As an outcome of the CAG report, the government engaged more ASHAs or community health workers, more focus on rural health infrastructure development, and incentivizing better health care. The CAG, by the nature of its job, finds itself in controversial headlines, but the man at the helm remains unfazed.
Institutions have outlived individuals. And institutions' credibility, the edifice on which it is built up, is the strength of either the human resources of that institution or the processes that it follows. I find that the human resource content of this institution is remarkably good. It is, if not better, comparable with the best that is available anywhere else in the country. And the processes that we follow, which means at every level there is a sifting process, which means the wheat from the chaff is removed.
The CAG review on the farmers' relief package in Maharashtra found that rupees 1075 crore package was not only tardily implemented but also left out a large number of distressed farmers. The package addressed short-term relief measures like rescheduling of loans and grants for marriage, illness, etc., but failed to correct the root causes of indebtedness, such as low minimum support prices of cash crops and high cost of seeds, water, and electricity. To take up audit of computerized systems and e-governance initiatives, the officers and staff of IAAD are extensively and rigorously trained in auditing information technology systems. The IT audit of e-governance in Andhra Pradesh revealed that key data and huge volumes of cash pertaining to various departments linked with the system were left to the administration of a private service provider without adequate internal controls. IT audit of land records computerization systems in several states revealed that the information fed was incomplete or full of errors. Therefore, they have been unable to replace the manual systems despite putting in huge amount of funds and resources. The CAG report on a scheme to save the Dal Lake of Srinagar revealed that while the government had spent rupees 236 crore on the project, the efforts were misdirected and concentrated on mechanical removal of silt and weeds rather than checking the unauthorized construction, polluting effluents, and encroachments around the lake area. Thus, the lake had reduced to half of its size and become shallower by 3 meters during the project period. CAG is conscious that the general public has become much more discerning and seek reports evaluating the performance of government schemes. Since civil society organizations have been conducting close scrutiny of the implementation and outcomes of the schemes, the CAG has taken various initiatives to synergize their audit reports with these organizations. The objective has been to muster the local knowledge and competence of these civil society organizations for a better reach of the formal audit process. Such social audits are being carried out for social sector schemes such as in health, education, rural employment, and water. The question is often asked, can CAG that has a sweeping mandate to perform audits itself remain immune to any monitoring? It is not known to many that the CAG undergoes regular audits performed by international auditors. The Controller and Auditor General intervened once on a defense deal regarding the warships acquired by the Indian Navy. On the heels of a CBI probe into procurement, CAG found out irregularities in the award of contract, flouting of norms of agreement with overseas suppliers, lack of internal audit mechanism among others, and an estimated loss of rupees 9,000 crore. As a result of the CAG report, many CAG recommendations have been accepted, leading to better safeguards. More recently, the CAG report facilitated the exposure of corruption at high places during the organization of the Commonwealth Games in Delhi in 2010. The CAG is not an auditor on call, but it was asked by the then Sports Secretary for a concurrent audit of the Commonwealth Games. its report to the Prime Minister a year ahead of the event highlighted several irregularities in the run-up to the Games. CAG emerges stronger after each churning. Its role as an effective watchdog is far better appreciated now.
All that is required to be done is then when I walk into the office of the registrar, when I walk into the office of the municipal commissioner, when I walk into the office of the post and telegraph, I know that the person who is sitting behind the desk is going to look after my interest and will ensure that my interest is protected. And that is what we hope to do in the years future, so that every government official knows that he sits in a glass house. All his actions are being seen from outside, and he does not ever have the temerity to do something which is incorrect.
India is a federal democracy, and it is the union of states that create the republic. The constituent units vary greatly in size, population, and levels of economic development. Sharing of revenues between the state and the centre, therefore, is a sensitive subject of great importance in this context. The Finance Commission is an institution established by the Constitution to allocate resources equitably among the states. In a federal polity like ours, it occupies a crucial place to ensure that this is done in a just and fair manner and in a truly democratic manner.
You see, in a federal structure like India, when the states and the center are two different legal entities, now the question arose that since the states were spending around over a period of years around 55 to 60%, it's been found, and the center is spending only around 40%, but the revenues were just the reverse. The centre's revenues were more, around 50-60%. So therefore it was said that there may be a need for a devolution of taxes and revenues from the centre to the states, so that the expenditure matches the revenues. So over a period of years, therefore, that was the intention behind the framers of the Constitution.
There are some duties which the centre levies, but the states collect. There are others which are levied and collected by the union but assigned to the states. And there are still others where revenues are to be shared between the states and the union. The task of the Finance Commission is not easy, as the allocation of funds from the centre to states involves hard bargaining. Some states allege that they are being discriminated against on partisan grounds, while others nurse the grievance that chronic backwardness and inefficiency is routinely rewarded by special packages. What needs appreciation is that the Finance Commission and Controller and Auditor General of India are as important pillars of Indian democracy as any other constitutional authority.
Finance commissions are not well known at all, and that is because they are not standing commissions. They are commissions with a finite life of typically 24 months. They are newly appointed every 5 years to reset the formulae governing the sharing of tax resources between the central government and the state governments in India. They are appointed with a membership of 5. One of the 5 is the chairperson of the commission, and they are given a deadline, as I said, typically 24 months from the start of the commission, by which to deliver their report. And since the report has to feed into the fiscal year following the date of submission, there can be absolutely no extension of the deadline.
Till date, 13 finance commissions have submitted their reports to the President. The chairperson of the Finance Commission is either a veteran politician with ample experience of governance or an experienced civil servant of impeccable integrity. In past, YB Chavan, NKP Salve and KC Pant have served in this position with distinction. Vijay Kelkar, who headed the 13th Finance Commission, represents the civil service. The 4 members of the Finance Commission are selected from among persons who are qualified to be appointed as judges of a high court, or have special knowledge of finances and accounts of government, or have had wide experience in financial matters and in administration, or have special knowledge of economics. The era of single party domination is over, and now India is essentially a federal polity with many political parties and different complexion and specific regional concerns. The rate and pace of economic development is not even across the country. While some states may not require the union's financial assistance much, others are totally dependent on it. And this is where the problem may arise, especially in a multi-party democracy like ours, where all sort of acrimony may emerge if the state in question is governed by a different political party than the one forming the government at the center. Developing a fair and objective sense of the need of the state is important. The Commission reviews the finances of the Union and the states and recommends steps for maintaining a stable and sustainable fiscal environment consistent with equitable growth. In the course of its work, the Commission tours different states and holds consultation with various state governments to assess their requirements firsthand. Once the Finance Commission has finished allocation, the Planning Commission takes over the task of apportioning funds, earmarking them for specific projects and schemes.
The guidelines are suggested by Finance Commission. So every time when Planning Commission makes allocation for the next annual plan, it will take into account the recommendations which are made by Finance Commission.
It has a direct interface with the states and seems to exercise a much greater influence. In fact, the two bodies complement the role of each other.
Finance Commission and Planning Commission are two very important institutions. It's a well-known feature of the Indian system that the central government has much more taxing powers than the state government. And yet the spending requirements of the states are very high because, education and health and all these things are really state expenditure. So there has to be some revenue sharing. And that revenue sharing is done by the Finance Commission.
The Commission also defines the grounds on which the government should allocate the grant and aid of the revenues of the Indian states out of the Consolidated Fund of India. The quantum of allocation of such fund needs to complement the requirements of the panchayats and resource of the consolidated fund of a state. It also needs to complement the requirements of the municipalities in the state and the resources of the Finance Commission of the state. The state finance commissions were established after the implementation of Panchayati Raj to recommend the allocation of funds from the state treasury to the local self-governance institutions.
Lately, the Finance Commission has started giving as a separate recommendations of grants for the local bodies. The 12th Finance Commission gave around 20,000 crores and the 13th Finance Commission gave around more than 87,000 crores, both for urban local bodies as well as rural local bodies, the panchayats, to strengthen them. And because it was felt that expenditure at these places is most required in the areas of health, education, sanitation, drinking water, so that these bodies become strong and the overall governance structures at these places become extremely strong.
The GST or Goods or Services Tax will enable the next phase of customs reforms. The sound architecture is one where imported goods are charged GST at entry and exports are refunded the full GST. By this arrangement, local firms face fair competition in both the domestic market and the global market. The GST would unleash India as a common market. Even though India is a giant economy with a GDP of nearly $1 trillion, firms often operate within one state. With the GST, poor states adjoining rich states will obtain increased investment and interstate discrepancies will decline. But this evolution, which tends to reduce interstate disparities, is blocked by barriers of movement of goods.
The goods and services tax is a new development which is going to change the configuration of tax collection in this country. What the goods and services tax will do is to unify the central taxation of production of goods and also of services with state taxation of sales and make it into a single seamless dual track taxation of goods and services right from the production point all the way down to the retail point.
India has not been able to achieve Chinese-style employment generation in manufacturing partly because of the burden of cascading taxes. The GST will make India a competitor in Chinese-style manufacturing and employment and set the stage for a great boom in employment-intensive and FDI-intensive manufacturing exports. The CAG and the Finance Commission, both working largely behind the scenes, discharge significant responsibilities of ensuring that public money is not squandered and the benefits of the government schemes reach the needy. They strengthen Indian democracy in myriad ways. The nation is beginning to appreciate what they do.